The next one, the question is, how costly is boat insurance for a year of looping? And that is going to vary extremely wildly depending on every factor that has to do with the boat, from length to the equipment aboard to the age of the boat to the experience level of the boaters. So that's a really, really tough question to ask. If any of our tough question to answer. If any of our panelists know what they spend per year for their boat insurance while they were on the loop, that might be helpful as just a couple benchmarks. But again, it changes a lot. Anybody have a number they can give out? Ben and Laura?
Sure. So the year we did the loop, with our home port listed in Chicago, but our cruising grounds covering the entirety of the loop, including the Bahamas, on a 57-foot boat, I believe our insurance was about $2,600 for the year. That number is dwarfed the moment that we moved our home port to within south of the hurricane demarcation line. And I should mention that our insurance that year varies very widely, and this is another factor in cost. We did not have a hurricane restriction. Others with very similar insurance from the same company, in fact, did have a hurricane restriction in terms of the dates when you could be south of the demarcation line. But as soon as we moved our boat's home port in south of the demarcation line into Fort Myers, it more than tripled.
No, it doubled.
It had already gone up.
Yeah, it had gone up,
and then it doubled.
And then when you got your captain's license,
yeah,
then it goes back down. So depending on your experience level, you also get credit for that, so to speak.
Great. Thanks. Anybody else have a number they can put on it for the year that they looped?
Yeah, I can put a number on it, Kim.
Yeah, thanks, Robert.
Yeah, our boat is in the $150,000 value range, and our boat insurance is about $1,500 a year. We're in hurricane zone here in Southport, so we don't escape that, even though we're not in Florida. But it actually becomes cheaper on the inland waters. I was surprised at that. Our boat insurance was cheaper the year we were on inland waters than on coastal waters. But $1,500 a year, about what I pay for insurance.
Great, thank you.
So I'll jump in there.
Yeah.
The first year that we were on the boat, we had like zero experience. And so our insurance was $2,400. And I mentioned it's a 1981, so it's an older boat. The whole insurance liability and all, I think we're like at 150,000 like Robert. The second year when we renewed, because we didn't run into anything, I guess, they dropped it in half, and it's been hanging at 1,200 ever since.
Good.
But we do have the caveat that Ben mentioned about having a hurricane restriction, and we do have to be above a certain latitude from June 1st until November 1st. So we're not allowed down past that 32 degrees or say the Florida state line area. So we stay above that all the time.
And as I think is frequently the case, there are currently a lot of rumblings about the insurers being much more difficult to deal with, both about experience as well as the age of the boat. In Florida, we're hearing things like Boat US will not write boats over 20 years at all. So, and if you are jumping in, Dave, it sounds like your insurance company is actually reasonably reasonable to deal with about jumping in with limited experience. They're much more restrictive now. We're hearing much more about people needing significant time with captains and captain restrictions until they've demonstrated a competence, et cetera.
Yeah, and Ben is spot on with that. Geico, which is the Boat US insurer, is not writing boats over 20 years old. I'm fielding lots and lots of questions about this. There are some insurance companies that will write those older boats, but I really think that the experience level, and I hate to be the bearer of this bad news, but I really think the experience level is going to be the next big issue for loopers. We just, last week's podcast was on this topic. So if you are still looking for that great loop boat and are worried about your insurance, check that out. You can find it, search for AGLCA on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of those podcast apps, or you can find it on YouTube. But we go into it for about 30 minutes pretty extensively. So check that out and then let us know if you have questions.